Welcome everyone. I'm Lyndall, Senior Peer from Western New South Wales for the Rural Response and Recovery team and a member of the Lived Experience Peer Worker Industrial Advisory Committee. All presenters are presenting as delegates of the Health Services Union and as part of the Lived Experience Peer Worker Industrial Advisory Committee. This is one of a two-part presentation series. There will be a question and answer presentation released related to this one. This information is being shared as all peer workers need to be aware of proposed changes to our award, regardless of union membership. This is a legitimate activity under the relevant New South Wales health awards and policies. The views presented today do not represent the views of New South Wales Health, local health districts or the health networks. A quick introduction to who we are. The Lived Experience Peer Worker Industrial Advisory Committee are peer workers who are HSU members who choose to be involved in statewide workforce issues and advance the voice of peer workers who are HSU members. The committee meets every 4 weeks for an hour. At the present time, the executive is Secretary, President Stephen, Vice President Lyra, Strategic Relations Officer Will, Research Officer Luke. This group also meets every 4 weeks on the alternate fortnight. Nominations for executive positions come from committee members and voting occurs annually in July. Here's a list of the current and recent past committee members. We have all been involved in the award creation project. We have also consulted with content experts, and for more information about the committee or to join, email our President Stephen Smith or communicate with a committee member. Because we have a very wide audience, we want to start with some basics about industrial awards, unions, and the concept of industrial negotiation. Industrial awards are binding agreements regarding the pay, conditions, classifications, and entitlements afforded to a collective group of workers. For these documents to be changed, the workers, you, can enter into negotiation with your government employer. New South Wales Health, our government employer, is not going to negotiate terms with each individual employee. They will only negotiate with the organisation that represents their employees in the form of a union. The Health Services Union, or HSU, is the union that represents health workers in New South Wales, with the exception of doctors and nurses who have their own separate unions. To give some background, back in the 70s and 80s, New South Wales Health staff first got some of our basic core conditions: 4 weeks of annual leave, minimum redundancy packages, etc. Since then, a lot of our core conditions haven't changed very much, despite our lives and lifestyles having changed quite a lot in the past 50+ years. In the early 2000s, there was some work on the Public Health Industrial Awards, and many of the profession-specific documents came into being. Unfortunately, they haven't been subject to material change in 2 decades, and they are no longer fit for purpose. In 2011, the New South Wales Government legislated the infamous wages cap, which basically meant employees were not allowed to bargain for changes to pay and conditions beyond a very modest limit each year. This hard wages cap meant no matter how our workloads increased or how the value or complexity of our work changed, no matter how our salaries compared to other states or comparative roles, we could not campaign industrially for any enhancements, and the union's hands were tied in that sense. In the years post-COVID, our pay has absolutely deteriorated in real terms. This means inflation has outpaced our trivial salary increases by over 10%, and we are being left behind. In 2024, we have finally commenced a process of award reform because the New South Wales Government followed through on their election promise to lift the wages cap and allow for negotiations. This period is therefore, it's as critical as it is exciting. because while the wages cap has been lifted for now, it will be legislated back into place at any time by our government, and unions cannot block this occurring. It will be reasonable to expect that after award reform, some form of wages cap will be reinstated via Parliament. Therefore, we expect this really is our one opportunity to get key changes to our pay and conditions sorted out for the next decade or more. For peer workers, this current opportunity is even more critical as we now have the possibility of having our own discipline-specific award and rates of pay. I'll now hand you over to Will, a member of our executive team, to present on the next piece of information.
Good day, folks. My name's Will. I'm a peer worker at South Eastern Sydney Local Area Health District. Also a member of the executive of this committee. I work as a supported transfer of care worker, as well as a suicide prevention peer worker. Today, I just wanted to provide you with a bit of background as to why we are looking to amalgamate some of the current awards. Currently, the awards are an absolute mess. It would be accurate to call it a sea of outdated award documents, and the examples listed on the screen are just some of the more than 30 different documents that different worker groups fall under. There is very little rhyme or reason to this structure, and within and across these documents, there is a broad mix of conditions, classifications, and pay scales. There is also a huge variation in levels of detail, the terminology used, and fairness to workers. The sea of random and fragmented award documents is problematic for other reasons too, as it significantly dilutes our power at the negotiation time. It is also a barrier to achieving widespread change via the legislative process that we have available to us, such as taking problems with one award document at a time to the New South Wales Industrial Relations Commission, which takes time and costs money. Individually, many professions likely don't have the numbers needed to push for their awards to be modernised. Together, however, we're in a much stronger position. It is also a positive for the government, and it simplifies awards into more logical streams. Allied health classifications have not been revised since 2006. So the solution is to amalgamate the awards into 5 separate categories or 6 separate categories. We fall under the clinical and non-clinical health professionals category, and attached to each of these categories is a set of core conditions. The core conditions are universal and they apply to everyone. So there are 2 aspects to which we're talking about in regards to the award reform process, and it's important to keep these in mind. So we have our core conditions, which are for everyone. So universal entitlements to leave, annual leave, sick leave, long service leave, and any other general allowances. And then we have our professional specific to our individual work groups, e.g. peer workers, allied health workers, psychologists. That has your classifications, your career progression structure, allowances, and the salary, and those very important pay rates. So before we go into details of the lived experience worker, peer worker award, we should spend a moment to clarify that the core condition log of claims has already been locked in. This is referring to the changes we are seeking to the core conditions that apply for all workers, like baseline staffing clauses. These core conditions were actually worked on by a number of HSU members from a cross-section around allied health, who got together and put a lot of work together to actually put these enhancements to the current core conditions together. We're seeking basically an additional 1 week of annual leave per year, which some state health systems and many private industries already provide their workers. An additional 10 days of sick leave. So recognising how easy it is to get sick working in healthcare, and and also how important it is that we have enough leave to stay home when we are contagious, given we work with very vulnerable populations. High-grade duties paid after 2 hours instead of 1 week, etc. If you've got time, you can always scan this QR code here. I'll leave it up for a little bit longer, and you can have a look at the full list of core conditions, because we don't really have time to go through all of them. So as a committee, we are looking to seeking to achieve some of these outcomes for the lived experience workforce. Develop a fit-for-purpose award aligned with the National Lived Experience guidelines. Create clearer pathways for career progression. So 5 positions, levels for lived experience workers from entry level through to executive level of positions. Achieve a improved salary for all lived experience workers, especially for those starting out. Expanding work descriptors to be more detailed so that it's easier to align with our actual competencies and our duties that are requested of us at each level. So here is an overview of the full draft classification structure in all its detail and complexity. This draft wouldn't have been possible without the ongoing dedication and commitment of our advisory committee members, to whom the credit must be shared equally. While fine-tuning this draft, we made every effort to address the needs of the most disadvantaged areas of health, particularly regional and remote communities. We adjusted wording to better support workforces in these areas, which will also bring benefits to our metropolitan districts. Each section outlines a set of key competencies that broadly define the key functions or tasks associated with each level. I'll now break down this structure down into sections, providing brief descriptors for each. Look, if you do have any questions, feel free to send them to any of our committee members, and we'd be happy, via email, we'd be happy to accommodate for those questions. So this first section highlights and supports our claim for lived experience specific supervision. Significant work has been done in the research space regarding peer supervision in New South Wales, and I want to acknowledge Paula Hannon from Northern Sydney LHD, who has been instrumental in advocating for choice and control in the peer supervision space. This is something we were determined to embed in our award classification document. There will also be an accompanying claim outside this classification structure itself. Think of the supervision project that was achieved in Victoria through their EBA. We will be pursuing something very similar. Here we introduce the entry-level lived experience position for new starters. This level is designed to support skill and competency development for those beginning their peer work journey. After completing your second year of service, you will automatically progress to the next level, which is proficient level peer worker. This is level 2. A key focus for this level was ensuring accessibility for those coming into New South Wales Health from CMO, so community managed organisations. We wanted to provide an equitable and clear entry point for experienced peer workers transitioning to New South Wales Health. This is also really good for us for when it comes to recruiting new staff and retaining them as well. You'll see that the largest paragraph toward the bottom of the section explicitly locks in that commitment. There are 6 years of service that exist at this level. So here we have the level 3 senior peer worker level. To help us understand this classification structure, let's use a metaphor. So imagine our workforce as a large, beautiful tree. The classification structure represents the roots, the trunk, and main branches. That's the foundation of our workforce. The Ministry of Health's framework, which is currently in development, will complement this by adding the greenery, the leaves, the fruit, and the flowers. And we, the workforce, well, we're the water that keeps the tree thriving, right? This senior level is intentionally versatile, accommodates the diverse range of advanced level peer worker roles already within health, while creating opportunities for those who are passionate about frontline peer practice to progress through a regrading process from the proficient level. The last dot point here is particularly important. So it outlines a competency for lived experience educators who would support other peer workers, staff, and people accessing services. This role will become more formalized through the Ministry of Health framework. And this is something we need to be vocal about when they are reviewing the framework document. We need to be vocal about the fact that we do need educators, peer educators, lived experience peer educators in New South Wales Health. So there's been some pretty important and thought-provoking discussions within the lived experience union space around the role of hierarchy in health. Often hierarchy can clash with our value system and contribute to a form of what they say colonization or co-opting within our workforce. The advisory committee wanted to address this by valuing lived experience education and frontline practice equally with management roles. To do this, we've created advanced practice and educational lead roles that sit at the same level. We've also adjusted the grading numbers to accommodate smaller workforce sizes, particularly in regional and remote areas. As you may know, we're starting to see a number of lived experience director roles emerging in the community sector. Bringing those roles into health will deliver significant benefits to our workforce and the communities that we serve. We've incorporated specific clauses to ensure these directors can be more boots on the ground, particularly in regional and remote areas where their presence can have the most impact. So rates of pay. These rates of pay are currently with the HSU, the rates of pay that we've put together as a committee, and they will be harmonising them in going through a harmonising process. They will be sent out to anyone who's a HSU member in the peer workforce for as part of the consultation process with our membership. So please keep an eye out for it if you are a member. One of the key things around our rates of pay is we're wanting to push for our anniversary date to be recognised on a yearly basis, as opposed to being calculated on a full-time equivalent basis. Currently, the majority of us are part-time, and the reality is health is saving a lot of money by just putting multiple people on part-time because they mature slowly when it comes to moving up to the pay scales. We have a cost of living crisis. People are having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get by. We would like to see this recognised on a yearly basis that people can go to the next level in their pay scale. So, broadly speaking, we are hoping to do away with the non-graduate pay scale and start entry level lived experience workers at a high level that is current and that is in line with the community managed sector. That's where we're going, with increases for everyone across the board. So here's a bit of a list of our log of claims that we'll also be taking to the ministry. There's a few different kind of categories here. Education and support. We will be advocating for a lived experience orientation package that can be rolled out to all the districts. A lot of peer workers are going to these new jobs and they're not being properly supported to understand the processes and around moving into these new environments and have that proper support around those orientation processes. So that's one thing we'll be asking for. One thing we're also asking for is making sure that people who are starting their Cert 4 while they're working are given proper support to do that Cert 4 during their work hours, because that's not happening at the moment. A lot of people are not being able to do that. They have to do it outside of their work hours. One thing that we want to put on the table here, and it's been talked about for a while, is the internationally accredited intentional peer support training. We think this should be given to every peer worker across health, and we would like that funded and rolled out so it can happen. That will be a part of our education claim. We also, moving forward, we'll be looking at putting a claim forward for a actual lived experience focused training allowance. So it'd be $1,000 a year towards anything training focused with your role, and that would be accessible to every peer worker. Obviously, we've got the professional lead roles. They're in the classification structure that will be a big part of the support process. Particularly having education and practice valued on the same level of management will really enhance our workforce and make it fit for purpose moving forward. In terms of allowances for lived experience workers, we will be asking for improved salary and wages. When it comes to our supervision claim, we're looking at getting allowance for peer workers similar in the Victorian project to choose a supervisor of their choice that would come off a list. That would be obviously a pool of money, and that supervisor would be paid. So this would provide opportunities for peer workers outside health that would like to be supervisors as well. So this is about creating lots of opportunity for our workforce. We're also looking at higher qualification allowances as opposed to the grad rate. So we're wanting to start those high qualification. They'll range from 4.5% on top of your current salary to 7.5% per annum, depending on what those qualifications are. We will be arguing that we need a high qualification allowance, at least at the base level for the Cert 4 once that's completed. So people that do have university degrees, that will be factored in. There's been a lot of question around what type of university degrees would factor into the high qualification allowance for peer workers. We will be pushing for all university degrees to be recognised for our workforce, because we think that's important. When it comes to supervision, obviously you saw the supervision claim in the classification structure. We want it for all with choice and control. We would like, obviously, the lived experience provision put forward in the program. We would like obviously that to apply for one-on-one and group supervision. And we'd also like Aboriginal workers to have access to cultural supervision, because we think that's really important. With the supervision claim, it is very much like what the Victorian health peer workers, lived experience workers achieved. We want something similar, but we also wanted to include the group aspect as well, because group supervision is also very important. We've prioritised more than enough hours in that classification structure so that everyone can feel emotionally and professionally supported by trained and qualified supervisors, lived experience supervisors. I'm going to pass over to our president of our committee, Stephen.
Hi, I'm Stephen, a suicide prevention peer worker currently working in Spot and Safe Haven. The first issue I would like to look at is how can we make sure changes to our awards are negotiated and implemented fairly? So to guide our process, we have a set of bargaining principles that were developed and endorsed by HSU members. There are a list of them, but to summarise the main concepts, no one goes backwards. We are not negotiating for any workers to be worse off under their new award. We seek genuine and transparent reform that occurs without trading off conditions of other members. And the negotiating processes will be member-led. But members will only vote on award issues that apply to their relevant award. And in terms of implementing new classifications, it's going to be quite a process, just to determine exactly where everyone will sit. So a series of transition arrangement clauses have been written into the award to guide that process and to ensure that it's fairly administered. Transition tables were used for positions that can be easily mapped between the old and the new levels, but in some cases a more detailed case-by-case determination would need to be made. And workers will have recourse and to resolution processes if they're unhappy. The clauses will also cover exceptions, and in the rare circumstance where an individual worker might end up worse off under the new award, there will be a grandparenting clause. Now, we're in the process of seeking feedback on the final draft of the award. So we're going to have a formal consultation process. The final draft of the proposed award has been released this week. Included in it, well, we haven't actually got the proposed pay scales, but they will also be released. and there will be an accompanying facts and questions, either document or we will answer some released by the union, and we will also release our own video to clarify a few things. Now, feedback will be able to be provided via an online survey. The consultation period will commence from the date of the release of the draft documents. They have now been released and will be open through to Monday, the 27th of January. We do acknowledge that this consultation process is over the Christmas New Year period, and this is not ideal. However, we are needing to meet external deadlines to be able to commence negotiation of the award prior to the expiration of our current agreement, which will expire on the 30th of June 2025. So some documents have already been emailed out to HSU members and will be publicly available on the HSU website. This video recording will be sent out, as will our question and answer one. Feedback and endorsement voting will only be available to HSU members as per our industrial relation process. So we would encourage those wishing to partake in this process to join the HSU as soon as possible. Union membership provides industrial safeguards and protections to all individual workers, and you will need to be covered by these safeguards to undertake industrial activity in your workplace. So, to provide sort of an overview of the award reform timeline, and to just emphasise where we are at the moment. The next steps are draft documents have been released and will continue to be released. The feedback period will be open from the date of the draft documents up until Monday, the 27th of January. Feedback will then be reviewed and incorporated into finalised awards over the next 2 weeks. And then there will be voting to endorse the finalised version in the final 2 weeks of February. So as previously mentioned, feedback and endorsement voting will only be available to HSU members. If endorsed, then we will be ready to negotiate in earnest from the beginning of March. And now the timing of this is strategic. The findings of the Special Commission inquiry into healthcare funding are due to be handed down in March, April. The HSU has long argued that the expected savings to health budget that will be uncovered during this inquiry will offset the cost of our award reform. The recent successes of pay claims of New South Wales Police were based on them identifying cost savings. We have a commitment from the current government to undertake these negotiations, and we need to complete these before the next election cycle to limit the risk of a wages cap legislation being reinstated. The other thing is, budget decisions commence with New South Wales Treasury around this time. So, what we've been discussing today, changes to the award, updating of the award, our new classification system, all of that is a proposal. It needs to be negotiated with the New South Wales government, and it's not a given that our claims will be accepted, as evidenced by other disputes with public sector workforce groups. Nor is it a given that we will achieve all of the changes we have put forward today. It needs to be negotiated and it needs to be won. Now, I just want to remind us that we are the Health Services Union, a collection of individual workers who have banded together to support each other in the workplace. We have developed a health union services union structure and organisation to provide support to all workers. But this organisation is only as strong as the membership that is behind it. So it's imperative that we have a unified show of strength and a critical mass of numbers. With the award nearing finalisation, the HSU will now focus towards ensuring we have a coordinated and strategic campaign to push our award reform agenda. This campaign needs to be member-driven, developed by members, actioned by members, and won by members. Paramedics, teachers, and police have all been successful in their recent claims due to a high level of union membership, active campaigning, and a commitment to undertake industrial action where necessary. We need to build membership, to build capacity in our local organising groups. We need your help to plan strategically where we can have the most impact on the government. We need you to be active on our public-facing social media accounts, and we need you to take action. So this presentation is the last opportunity for engagement in award reform as a non-member of the HSU. From this point moving forward, only members are able to be involved. This includes being able to provide feedback and voting on endorsement of the award and on accepting award reform negotiating outcomes. We encourage you to join the HSU and to be active in pushing forward award reform agenda. We need a critical mass of health professionals who are HSU members, and your union membership will protect you when undertaking industrial activity in your workplace. We cannot emphasise enough that if we want the new Peer Worker Award with peer worker specific career progression, adequate pay that recognises the value of our lived experience expertise and recognises how we add value to the health system, we need all of us to work together. So I encourage you, connect with your local delegates and join your local organising networks. And most importantly, talk about award reform and get excited. 2025 will be our year. We've been waiting for this since lived experience workers were first employed by New South Wales Health almost 30 years ago. Our time is now. Thank you for watching, and also look out for the second part of this video series where we will attempt to answer your questions.